am going to hand it over to you, Sandeep.
Okay.
The floor is yours. I would introduce you, but I feel like you gave yourself a pretty good introduction.
Yeah. And you covered that for me already, so we're good. Okay, so thank you very much. My name is Sandeep Pawar. So I'm a data analytics engineer at Free Lighting. I'm here in Wisconsin. The company is in Wisconsin. I live closer to Chicago. And I mentioned this earlier, but I'm a mechanical engineer, and I now do mostly data analytics stuff. My blog is at PawarBI.com, and I'm pretty active on Twitter, so you can follow me there, PawarBI. I was in Lexington just a month ago on my way to the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. Stayed in
Nice.
Lexington. Yeah, and I love espresso and latte art. And I have a recommendation for you. I don't know if you've heard about this cafe, A Cup of Commonwealth, but if you have not, do check it out. I love their cappuccino, so give them a try.
I'll look it up. Cool.
Yeah. So the today's topic is key influencer, and this is often described. Well, I don't think Microsoft describes it, but a lot of people describe it as one of those AI tools that's part of Power BI. It's a visual, and the way it works is it helps you. I think what Microsoft has in mind, this is more aimed towards like data analysts and business intelligence developers and analysts who want to don't necessarily have the ability to code or have the background to code and then do all the statistical stuff, but they have a need to do all of that stuff. So this is kind of a way for Microsoft or Power BI team to say, hey, we give you this and then you can use this. And I really love it. I like it. And the agenda for today is in the first half. So right now it's 6:03 my time. So until like 6:30 or so, I'm gonna talk about what this tool does, how to use it, all the features, and all the cool things that it's doing. And then in the later half, hopefully I'll get some time, and then I can show you the more advanced stuff, then some of the limitations, the pitfalls that you should avoid, how you can get the exact same results or even better results outside of this, and then maybe use that in Power BI. So let's get started. You see my screen already. So I have opened Power BI, and I have a few data sets that I have loaded. The first one that I'm going to take a look at is this orders data. So nothing crazy. I mean, this is probably something we all see in our day-to-day life. So this is row ID, what's the priority on the order, discount applied, shipping costs, and all of good stuff that comes in that we see every day. And what a business intelligence guy, the BI developer, or what he wants to do is he wants to look at what are the factors that help our sales. And then what are some of the factors? We also have a column there called returned, if the product was returned or not returned. And we want to be able to look at it and see what are the factors that influence it. So what I do first is, let me see if my Zoom it is working. It's not. Let me start Zoom it. Okay, let me start it, and I think it should be working now. Yeah, so it's working. So I go to my canvas, click on the key influencer visual, which is right over here. So I click on key influencer. And when I click it, I am presented with this pane, and there are a few options. First is analyze, second is explain by, and third is expand by. So analyze is, as the name suggests, what do you want to analyze? What is the column that you are interested in analyzing. And explain by is how do you want to explain the that particular column. So let's say I click on this and I go to my returned quantity. So let's say status. I want to look at my status, which in this case is if I let me go here, and then there are a bunch of columns here on the right hand side, right? All of these columns. I'm going to start dropping them into this field called explain by. So let's say we start with the city. I drop it in here, and then keep an eye on the left hand side. Okay, nothing yet, nothing has happened. So then I'm going to drop maybe customer segment. Let's see if that works. The bulb is doing something. Okay, so we got something here. Let's go order priority. Next one is product category, then product container, product subcategory. I'll just start putting everything in there and kind of see what sticks, right? So I'll go there, the shipping mode, state or province, and yeah, so let's see what it did. So amazing, right? So now we have this cool looking visual right here, and we will look at it from top down. So let's begin and understand what's going on here. Two tabs that are created. First is this key influencer. Second one is top segments. And by the way, if you have your Power BI open right now, maybe you can fire that up. If you have a data set that you want to explore, do that. And while I'm going through this, take a look at it. And if you have any questions, let me know. So we do that. So there are two tabs that we can click on. So this and this. Okay, what's next? I see what influences status to be. So this over here, and that is the column that we added in the analyze field. So there are two values in it, returned and not returned. So that's what it's doing. So it's a categorical feature, and it says returned or not returned. You can do numerical or you can do categorical. Categorical meaning it is like a text, right? So if you have like 10 different values, unique values in your column, that would be categorical. Or if you have a column with like year or maybe discrete values like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that would also be categorical. The continuous would be something that's a numerical like sales, profit, or something else that is continuous that you can say, okay, it is 23.29. So that would be your continuous column. And then depending on whether you are doing you're in your analyze field, whether you're doing continuous or categorical, it will give you slightly different results. So we drop that in. In our case, it is categorical, meaning text. So it's saying, okay, I find two. What do you want to analyze? Whether do you want to look at not returned or returned? Well, obviously, we want to look at returned, right? Because that's what we probably are more interested in. What happened? Who are these people who returned our product? And we want to understand that. Then next is if you look at this part over here, and which is what I like about this particular visual, it gives you a really nice way of understanding what the data is telling you. So the way you read that is when the state or the province is District of Columbia. So when the state is DC, what happens? So that's the arrow. So what happens? The likelihood of the status meaning this thing over here, being returned increases by 4.61x. So what this is telling us that based on whatever it's doing under the hood, when the product is sold to a customer who is in DC, they are more likely to return it back than customers who are where? So that's where this other part comes in. If you look at the x-axis here, it's state or province. And then these are all the different states we have. So what this is telling us that, okay, Power BI, this key influencer visual, scanned all the different states in the data set. And based on its analysis, it's telling us that if you keep everything else the same, and that is an important thing to keep in mind, keeping everything else the same, meaning we're not looking at maybe a city or maybe a zip code within DC. We are not looking at which product is returned or what shipping mode was used. Keeping everything else the same, if you were to look at just the state alone, what is the likelihood of a customer who is in DC of returning it? Well, it is 4.61 times more than the others. This gives you a comparison as to how much likely that is to happen. So this is where this part is. Now, there are three things that we want to look at when you're analyzing this particular part of the visual. So percentage status is returned. So how many percentage of the people returned the product? There is a red line right over here. And it's kind of difficult to see it, but if you read it, you zoom in a little bit, and if you see it, it says average excluding selected is 1.02. So overall, how many people actually returned the product? More than 1.02%. How do I know that? Because this is excluding that. It's excluding what's shown here. So this yellow bar is DC, but when you exclude DC, what is the average? 1.02. And because these states over here, so DC, Pennsylvania, California, all of these are above this average, these are deemed to be, I guess, influential factors as well when you are looking at DC. So how would I, if I'm okay, in 1 second, if my boss comes over, I'm doing this, and my boss comes over and says, okay, well, what is this telling me? So what I would say is, well, the customers who are in DC are more likely to return it, but here are a few more states that return it: Pennsylvania, California, Massachusetts. But compared to all of them, the customers in DC are more likely to return it. When you click on this, it automatically displays it by that particular category selected. So what I mean by that is, if you see it is state, and then next one is region, down here, region, order priority. So when you select selected region, it only gives you the regions. So it gave me West, East, Central, and South. So when it is East, it is the region. So it's only showing me the region. When I click back here, you can choose to only show, so if I go back and click on this, or let's go here, and then click on this, then it will show you only the ones that are above that red line. When I click on this, above this red line. So those are the ones that are influencing your factors the most. Now, is it straightforward? Can you always see that? Probably not, because here is the thing. So this is ranked. So we start from the top. So it says DC is my #1 state. The one that after that is California. But you see on the right-hand side over here, oh, actually I can zoom it, right? Yeah. If you see it on the right-hand side here, the next one is actually Pennsylvania over here. After that is California. So why did it pick Pennsylvania and not California? Honestly, I don't know the answer to why it actually did that and why is it showing that. Well, actually, I do know the answer, but it's difficult to interpret it, and it's very confusing to analyze it when it shows it that way. Why do we have California here, but why do we have Pennsylvania over here? And the reason for that is the percentage and the impact. So what it's doing, it's looking at the impact, and we will look at what that impact means in a bit. But it's looking at the impact, and it's also looking at the count. And how do we know that? Looking at the count is there is another thing that's going on over here. So this is actually turned on for me, but let me switch it off. Enable count. So when you actually launch it on your own, this is how you will see it. But when you go to the options pane over here, or the formatting pane over here, go under analysis, and then you'll see a bunch of different options over here. Right now, because as I said earlier, we are looking at analysis type, so it's categorical. So that's it automatically detected that for us. So categorical. And then when you click this, enable counts, and if I go back, you'll see small circles around them, right? So you see the small circles over here, and notice this the circle or the semicircle. Let me zoom in a little bit here. So there is a really tiny one over here, then a big one around here, and maybe a one between that two right over here. And the reason for that, what the circle means, it's now actually counting the how much proportion of rows that you have. So this is telling us that when you turn that on and click on count up here or down here at the bottom, so you have impact and then count. When I turn this thing off, notice it at the bottom, you only have, you don't actually, it doesn't say anything. But when you turn it on, enable counts, it will show you impact. When you click on count, go to count, and now it will show you by count. So by count, California, it has far more customers that we have there compared to any other state. So that's why I did that. But this is a kind of a good way to see that that you can sort it by count as well, and not just the impact. So there are two things, just to recap, or maybe a lot of things, but primarily two things. When you are showing this to somebody, you want to look at how much impact that particular variable or that column has on the column that we are trying to analyze. So that tells us how much impact it has. Second, we can look at the count, because that is very important for us to see. As we saw, District of Columbia, although there are fewer customers, they are more likely to return. Whereas California, although we have far more customers compared to DC, they are less likely to return. Still high, but still less likely to return compared to District of Columbia. So, you know, that gives you a little bit of a perspective, and I really like this, how they did it. And there are a couple of different ways you can play with that. So if you go again over there, you can do relative or you can do absolute. So absolute and relative, what the relative does is, if I go to count back again, you should see a full circle around it. So all the other ones are relative to that particular field. So the one at the top is a full circle. One after that is, you know, there's a little bit of a gap here, then after that, and so on and so forth. So although by count, the DC is way at the bottom, it's by impact, it is far more important. Hope that helped you understand what exactly it's doing. Let's look at the next one, the top segments. What the top segment does is it, and this is actually my favorite part about the key influencer, is it looked at all of your data. So it looked at all of your data, different tables as well, because if you have relationships going on between different tables, You can just drop all of it here, and it will analyze all of those different data sets that you have in your report, and then group all of these different rows and show it in a really nice way. So here, what this is showing us is these are all the bubbles, and it found 3 segments. So now we want to understand, okay, but yeah, we now know that there are people in DC who are more likely to return, but those are the people that we did not we controlled for the other variables. So we just looked at them, but not necessarily what product, not necessarily what shipping mode, or a bunch of other things. This is where the top segment comes in, that it identified 3 distinct groups of people, or groups of customers or rows that it found interesting. The first one here is 3.2%. 3.2%. These are in order. So the one that has more status is up at the top here on the left-hand side. When you click on it, let's click on it, and then it will show that state of province of California, yeah, 3 point whatever. The one after that, New York, and then look at this. So this one, who is this? So this is a customer segment that is not a small business, it is not low, product category is office supplies, and a bunch of other stuff. Now, why did it not include all of these categories here? That's just because of the impact and the average. So all of this is not done based on the impact. So impact is gone. So impact is only for this part of the visual. This is only based on the percentages. If you read here, in this segment, 3.2% of the status is returned. So California, 3.2% of it returned. Looking at all the different variables on an average, 1 point. Let's see, maybe there is a bug here, but on an average, whatever, this 1.3. But people in California, when looking at all the other factors factored in, 3.2%, so 2 percentage point more of them returned it. Again, don't confuse this with this. This is looking at the impact. This is looking at how likely they are to return it. So that's why it is DC, controlling for all the other things. This is looking purely at like summary statistic, like averages and the counts, what is going on over here. And that's what it is basing it on. Now, how does this differ from the decomposition tree? So let's take a quick look at that. So I have the same, I'm working with the same data set over here. Instead of the quantity return, now we are looking at the sales. So if I show you here, now we are looking at the sale. It's the same, exact same columns that we had considered earlier. And now we are asking a different question. The question that we are asking here, that, okay, I understand who is returning, but how can I improve my sales? What's happening? What can we do to improve or increase our sales? Sales obviously is a numerical column. So now we do not have like distinct categories. Rather, we have increase or decrease. So Power BI automatically detects that for you. And now we're saying increase or decrease. And then based on that, what this is telling us that the shipping mode, when the shipping mode is truck, and then product container is jumbo, so on and so forth. But I still find this a little bit more confusing to understand. So compare this with the decomposition tree. This is based on an average, okay? compare this compare this with the decomposition tree, which is another so-called AI visual in Power BI. So I clicked on decomposition tree, and then I dropped sales in here. I dropped shipping mode here, product container. And if I click on this and go to high value, let me go to top segments here. And it found two distinct groups here. So it found segment 1 and segment 2. Let me click on this guy. So on an average, when this group of customers who are product container is jumbo drum and shipping mode is delivery truck, on an average, they purchase, we sell about $3,000 worth of products to them. Okay, so keep an eye on that number. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to put this up. So I have product container is up at the top and shipping mode is up at the bottom. And then I click on this again. What happened? It's thinking, okay, regular A. I'm going to change this over here. When you're looking at the top segments, again, remember, the top segments always look at the summary statistics, meaning like median and average and percentage and things like that. When you click on right now, what is the aggregation level here? It's don't summarize by default. It will go to sum, but we're going to change that to average. So click on average. Rather here, we want to click on average. So we click on average over here. And let me click here. And then click on jumbo drum because I want to expand that. Look at, okay, I cannot do this. Let me move this here and here. And now see the what's happening over here. Look at the numbers. First, read this. So the average sales is $3,000. Okay. This is $2,000 more than the typical average. So $3,000 is for this particular segment only. Our actual group average is about $950. Okay. Look at these numbers over here. 950 and then 950. So our average is 950, but when you traverse this path, you go from average sales 950. When you go to jumbo drum and delivery truck, it is 3,030, which is exactly the same numbers that we have here, 3,030 and 3,030. So in a nutshell, this top segment, what is doing is not much different from what the decomposition tree is doing. So which one would you choose? Well, it all depends, right? I mean, I find the decomposition tree easier to explain. At the same time, it also gives me ability to look at and traverse different part. Okay, tell me jumbo box, what is happening, and then large box, what's happening, and then whoever your user is, they can actually go and look at all of those stuff. Where this helps is if I had, let's move this one over here. If I had, remember in the key influencer, your order matters, right? I don't know which one to pick next, or what order should I put these in. Well, the key influencer does that for me because it has identified me. It looked at the entire data that we provided it. And then it told us that, okay, here is one group of customers who has higher sales compared to everything else. So maybe you can use that to order your columns here in the decomposition tree. They both achieve the same thing, but now I'm able to say, okay, I want to put this one first, then the shipping mode. And I already know from based on this, what comes after that is not so much important. So after that, you can base it on some other columns that make more business sense to you. That won't necessarily explain if we are able to increase the sales or not. But now at least I know what columns to put in here. So I'll use this to identify the customer segment and then order my visual here based on what I find in this particular column. Okay, so that explains how I use this. Column versus the measure. So if I go back here, remember we dropped the status here. So all of these are different columns, but you can also drop measures in your key influencer. And the way you would do that is I click on this, and then I just created a simple measure for average. So I just say average X and my table, and then what do I want to average? So average, but when I start dropping my columns here, explain by shipping mode, nothing. Explain by product category, nothing. Container, nothing. Product subcategory, still nothing. So what's going on? The reason for that is now we have aggregated everything, right? Average sales is a measure. Measure is an aggregation. It's not a static number, so it's an aggregation. So it aggregated for these four categories what the average sales is. So we want to break that aggregation. And the way we do that is including a unique identifier, a key column in there. So in this case, I have a row ID. I just dropped it in expand by. So I drag this row ID and put it in the expand by. And now I have all the different things that I was looking at that we had seen earlier. So if you do not have a unique key or a unique column, that is something you'll have to do in Power Query. So you can just go to Power Query. So actually, let's go do that. So you can go to Power Query. Let me pull it right over here. So you can go to Power Query, and then you can just go to Add Column, and then let's say Index Column from 1. And then it will create that unique identifier for you for the for all the tables. So far so good. So now we just saw that you can use Key Influencer to identify the factors that are influential. It always looks at depending on whether you're looking at the a numerical column or whether you're looking at a categorical column, it will do different things. If you have a numerical column that you think is categorical, meaning, let's say you have a survey and your survey respondents have given you rating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you put that in here. When you do that, it will 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It will consider the visual will consider that as a numerical column, but it's actually categorical. So you can turn that off by going here and then say analysis, and then changing that to, right now we cannot, but changing that to categorical, and then that way you can turn that into a categorical. So that is also an option that you have. If you want to focus or only want to show one option or the other, so right now we have Key Influencer. I don't want to show the top segment. So you can disable that on the right-hand side. So that's gone. Or if you want to only show your key segments, then you are able to do that as well. Another thing that this helps you do is, let me see if we can, if there is another one that I can show you. Yeah, so the state of California, when it is able to find the pattern, you will see this option, learn more about this segment. And when you click on it, it will give you lots and lots and lots of different um, things that it found. Not all of them would be uh, not all of them would be helpful, but they are somewhat. If you go through one by them, maybe it will help you understand your data a little bit more. So we are looking only at California here. So when you clicked on California, Los Angeles within California, that particular city returned more than any of the other cities. So you can click on them, and it will show you what is the percentage. So which is really cool, because this is one visual, and within this one visual, you have multiple things that are going on that really helps you understand it more. So within, again, California, again, which customer segment? Well, the home office is more likely to return or not return. Order priority, and so on and so forth. So it doesn't do that all the time. So as we saw earlier, if I go here and then click on this, it doesn't find it all the time. Now, how it does that, I don't know. I've tried to find the answer to that, but I don't know when it does that. But when it does find it, this is basically same as if you in Power BI service, if you go and click on explain this or give me insights. I forgot exactly what it is, but key insights, and it will find those key insights for you. So this is really pretty powerful stuff that helps you understand your data more. Now, the main question is it accurate? Can you trust it? And is it something that you can put in front of your stakeholders? And this is where this particular visual, there's a lot to be desired for. Let me put it that way, in that department. So what is the architecture and how exactly is it doing that? So the way it's doing that is, this is from Microsoft documentation, by the way. The way it's doing that is it uses ML.NET. Whenever you create a query, it will take that, send it to analysis services, which is the database engine behind it. It will train a machine learning model, score it, send back the results, and then display it on your in your visual. Now, there are two things that are really, really cool that Microsoft has done, in my opinion, which makes it really stand out. What Microsoft is doing, is it, in terms of the algorithm and in terms of how it's doing, is it like groundbreaking? No. I will show you, you can do the exact same in Excel. So what it's doing is not, but have people use what's available in Excel before? They have not, because what you can get in Excel is just a bunch of numbers. It does not give you key insights that you're able to get through visualization here. So which is why this is a really good, powerful inferential modeling tool for you to understand and use it. The second thing that's really cool about this is it's doing all of that in like a fraction of a second. So some of you who are maybe familiar with machine learning, Rui is. So if you're familiar with machine learning, it takes a lot of time to train a model and do a bunch of stuff and cleaning and all of that, and then create the results and then score it, and it takes a lot of time. Microsoft is doing all of that in literally a fraction of a second without giving up too much accuracy. So, which is really an awesome part about this visual. And how's it doing that? It depends on whether it's a categorical feature or it's a numerical feature. If it is categorical, it will start with ML.NET, which is where this database engine for analysis services. So that's where it goes. It pre-processes the data. It will do one-hot encoding, meaning it will dumbify your categorical features, replace the missing values if it finds any. Now that's not so much of a good part about it, because you don't want the visual to make decisions for you. So it does that for you, but you should, if there are missing values, you should do it for yourself. Look at my blog, and there is a post about it, but you can look at that. Normalize it, the data. So it will do a bunch of stuff, and it does this LBFGS logistic regression model on it, which is, again, it's a linear model. Those of you who know about this regression and machine learning, it's again not groundbreaking. It's pretty plain vanilla stuff. The implementation of this is that it's very fast. So in scikit-learn, for example, you have the exact same thing. In Python, you can do the exact same thing, but Microsoft's version of it is much faster, and you can do more regularization and stuff with that thing. But so it's doing it all of that for you. You don't have to do any of that stuff, and it does it for you. And then it returns all the scores and the predictions and gives you the result. So as I mentioned, this has actually been around for a while. This is nothing is groundbreaking in terms of the algorithm that's being used and all of that stuff. So I'll show you an example. So I have another data set over here. Let's go to this. Where'd it go? Employee performance. So we have, it says year one, but let's say this is quarter one. So quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, and you have the final quarter. And what this is an employee is rated and be every quarter. So first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and we want to be able to predict what will be the score in the last quarter, because it's important for the company to know, or the HR to know, how will they do next year based on all of this, and can we get any insights out of this so that we can design our maybe employee retention or talent management, or things like that. So let's see how we can do in Key Influencer first. So I go here, and then I'll say the final is what I want to analyze. So final, and then explain by is year one, year two, and year three. So what I'm trying to understand here, that is there any pattern here? Can I say for sure that, okay, based on the performance, how that particular employee does in the first 4 quarters, can I say that he will do really good, or he won't do that much good in next year? What will be his score, because his promotion will be based on that. So what this is telling us, that year 3 is super important, and year 2 after that. Year 1, not so much. So what this is telling us is, okay, if an employee doesn't do as well in the first year, it doesn't have any predictive power, so no big deal. That's okay. Year 2, yeah, it is important, but year 3 is even more important. How that employee does in the 3rd quarter is even more important. And then it gives us a bunch of number, 28.32, and I'll show you what that means here in Excel. So let's go to Excel. So I have the exact same thing, and what I'm going to do is, when I have this here, I'm going to go to data, and then I am going to click on data analysis here, and then select regression. So I select regression, go here, and my Y is this. This is my column that I'm trying to predict. So I'll go right here, and actually 176, and then say enter. And then my X meaning what are the things that I want to explain it by. And I go here and select these first 3 columns right over here and say enter. And that's it. And I say, okay, I want to put this right over here and say enter and say okay. And it gives us the summary output. This is what we have always done in Excel, a bunch of numbers that nobody, or maybe few people understand, but the analysts who do not have any background in statistics or machine learning or anything, they don't know what's going on, which is where Power BI has done an excellent job of packaging it in a way that you can make sense of all of these numbers. So there are a few things that I want you to draw your attention to. First is, let's say I'm going to highlight all of those things. So this, I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to highlight this, and then I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. So this is telling us 53% R square value, meaning how good, are we able to explain, or can we really predict the final score in the last quarter? Can we do that? Yeah, somewhat. We are able to explain 53% of it, the overall variation in it. Which are the factors that are important? So look at these numbers over here. The higher the number, the higher the importance it has. So 0.86, 0.43, and 0.07. So year 3, year 2, and year 1. 0.86, if I go here and look at it, year 3 goes up 33.49, 28.32. So I'm going to come back here, 28.32 divided by, it was 33 or something, 0.85, pretty damn close, right? Same thing will happen to that. So what you get in Power BI is not much different from what you get in Excel. But Power BI has done it in a way that you can understand it. If you ask me, this is easier to understand a little bit if you know what you're looking for. But what this is telling us that for every point that is given in year 3, that particular person will get 0.86 more in their final quarter. I don't know why Power BI, where it comes up with 33.49. If it wanted, it should have kept these two numbers the same, 33.49 and 91. I don't know where 90, I cannot compare these two directly, because this one is normalized for the score. So I know 0.86 and 0.43. So year 2 has half the impact as year 3, which is good for me to know. It will also give you a p-value for status for null hypothesis. So basically, these two are important. This is more than 0.05 or a critical value. So this is more than less than 0.05. So these two are important. So let me recap here. So what we get here is not different from this. How good is it? This is this good. So it is not exceedingly good, but it is good enough. Can we do better? Probably we can. And the way I can show you that is, and this is where, if there's one thing that you want to take away from this presentation is, this part. Let me show you this. So I do the exact same thing, and I go to data analysis, regression again, and this time I'm gonna select this Y again, final quarter, okay? And then select this, enter, input X range. I have another variable that I have added here that I will explain in just a second, but let me do this. And then output range is right here, and I do enter, and then OK. And now let me highlight again, and then select this. So this is this, and this. Now we jumped this R squared number, rather this one. So the R squared number jumped from 0.52 to 0.59. And the difference between what I had here and here is that I've added another column called Y23, which is a multiplication of these two. In statistical terms, what that means is these two factors are correlated with each other and they move with each other. How do I know that? I know that because I analyze this data, and there is a lot of different things that you have to do. But a typical business analyst wouldn't know unless they look for it and then understand it. Now, also look at these variables here, negative, negative, and 0.01. This does not make any sense at all. That, okay, how do we interpret this? Well, it's very hard to interpret it. If I go to Power BI and then add that column here, performance, Y23, right, drop it right here, the numbers will change. Now, my Y23 is super important, 27.28, followed by Y2 and Y3. Notice the order has changed again. What does this tell you? And what does this Y23 mean? In terms of explaining what's going on, what this Y23 is saying is that, yeah, year three and or quarter three and then quarter two are important, but what is more important is how do they do going from quarter two to quarter three. If that particular employee shows performance improvement going from quarter two to quarter three, they are more likely to do well in quarter four. Even if they have high score in quarter two and quarter three, but relatively speaking, but they are on a decline, meaning going from quarter two to quarter three, they show a decline. They are less likely to show an improvement in quarter four. Now, did Power BI identify that for us? It did not. So the point here is that do not trust these numbers that you are getting out of this visual. So these numbers over here, 27.28, 23.49, these are good, but use them as on a relative basis. Don't make any business decisions based on just looking at these numbers and say, yeah, you know, DC it's going to show 4 or 5 times more or less likely to return. So, or more likely to return. So let's spend some more money, expand, or do more customer operations and then customer support and do that. No, don't do that. You have to look at the data even more closely to make those business decisions. There are a bunch of other limitations to it that I'm going to go very quickly over it. I see I have only maybe 10 more minutes over here. Key influencer is affected by an outlier. Outlier meaning what I did was in this in the data set alone, I replaced some values with very high numbers to see is it robust enough? Will it change the numbers? It does. So when I do that, the number changed from it's supposed to be 93,000, but it changed to this is a different data set, by the way, but it changed from 93,000 to 82,000. So which is not good. So again, the recommendation here is do not look at these numbers. You can say audience is important, but don't say it is $82,000 or $92,000. It's important, but don't look at the numbers. What about the missing values? I intentionally deleted some of the missing values, about 4% of the missing values, to see how well does it replace the missing values and how does that affect the scores. It does affect the score. So it reduced it from, it's supposed to be 92, got it down to 72. What about multicollinearity? Meaning, again, the interaction effect that I talked about, but if there are any more columns that are related with each other that go hand in hand. Remember this year, quarter two and quarter three, they go hand in hand. And you wouldn't know that until you look at the data and identify those. But what happens if it is there? If it is there, then your numbers will change significantly as well. So what I did was I intentionally created a multicollinearity in this data. So now the numbers change from 93 to 115, 14. So not only it changed the factors that are important, but it also changed the numbers and as well as the factors that are important. So the takeaway here is key influencer visual, is it cool and can you use it? Yes, you should. Should you make any business decisions based on it? You absolutely should not. Should you trust um, uh, the order that it gives you? So if I go here, should you trust the order that it gives you? You should not. The way I would look at this is I would look at them as a group. So I would say the shipping mode, product container, and maybe product category. These three things are important, relatively speaking, are important. But I wouldn't necessarily say only these things are important. And the reason I say that is the more I study this, and unfortunately we don't have enough time here, but the more I study this. So what I did was there is a library called Nimbus ML that's out of Microsoft Research Lab, and I use the exact same algorithms that are used in the key influencer, and then created them. I got some kind of similar results. If you see this quarter 3, quarter 2, quarter 1, but when I look at and then plot these feature importances for different segments, these differ widely. So I'll give you an example here. So for this example, this marital status and then never marital status and capital gain, these are the three important things. If I do the exact same thing in Power BI, if I do the exact same thing in Power BI, I get different results. I do get married, but it's somewhere down. The capital gains, it did not show up. If I use AutoML, which is another way you can recreate this in Power BI to get the same thing, I get different results here as well. So I would look at them as, what are the top 3 or 5 things? Not necessarily these are the absolute, most important things. So how can you create all of these things in Power BI if Power BI, the key influencer visual, if it is not trustworthy, if it is not something that you can trust your numbers on, what can you do? Well, one, you'll have to analyze your data more. That's number one thing. Second, there is no easy way to get around that. You will have to use either Azure ML. Doesn't have to be Azure ML, but you can use Azure ML or you can use Python to create this and then import that into Power BI. Now with the PPU, the premium per user license, what it did for everybody is it opened up AutoML, right? So I created this exact same in AutoML. And in AutoML, it gives you the top predictors. And when you look at the top predictors, it gives you these influencers for that particular visual. Now, it's not going to be as interactive, meaning if I go here and then further here, and let's say it's not going to be as interactive as, let's say, okay, give it to me for the central region. You won't be able to do that. It will only give you the global important factors what are important there. And all of these can be imported into Power BI. Now, this requires premium, but as you might already know, PPU is free for you. So do go use it, explore it, and that's it's free. So it should be available in your tenant, or you can ask your admin to do it for you. And then so you can use that and then import it into Power BI as a data source, and then show all of those factors in that. And so there are a lot of other things that I wanted to show, but we don't have time here. So to recap and to summarize, what are my tips and recommendations? Always perform your exploratory data analysis. Know if it has any influencer or influential points or outliers. The difference between the two is, let me show you real quick here. If you do a quick scatter plot, so this is my page and this is my outcome that I'm looking at. Notice these three things, 1, 2, and 3. These are not necessarily outliers. These are points that are valid that we don't want to take away from our data. But look at the slope here. When I get rid of those 3 points, my slope changes. So earlier it was slanting maybe towards the ground more. Now it has gone up when I get rid of these 3 points. So the point here is that it is important to understand your data. If those points are what those points are, you need to fix it yourself. Impute the missing values yourself. Don't let Power BI do it for you because it could be creating it incorrectly or imputing incorrectly. Always plot the data, especially scatter plot, to understand the factor that you're trying to understand. How is it going? Then multicollinearity. Unfortunately, there is no easy way unless you plot it and then try different things. You won't know it. Verify results with Python, R, or even Excel, the least. As I showed you, you can analyze and understand it a little bit more in Excel. So always verify it in Excel. Correlation doesn't mean causation. If it shows a high correlation factor, doesn't necessarily mean it's highly correlated or you should act on it. You should look at the data more. The results may be biased, meaning if it doesn't take fairness into account, right? If you're a construction company where you have 90% male and 10% female, and you're trying to decide who should I give raise to, so obviously going to tilt more towards the male population because that's what your data says. So you have to use your judgment based on that. If you have too few observations, and keep this in mind. And I really would like Power BI to fix this. If you have too few observations in particular category, Power BI will not give you an error, but it will actually exclude it from the visual. So if you have, let's say, a factor or a column that has only 5 or 10 different values in it, it will not give you any error, but it will just exclude it from your visual. Does that mean that particular factor or that column is not important? No, it doesn't mean that. It's just that Power BI does not work with a column that has few factors. So again, one more limitation. I wish it to give you some sort of a warning. Imbalanced data set. Let's not worry about that. It is separable. Yeah, and only use the key influencer if you are able to explain the data really well. I would just use, if you are a developer, I would just use it for myself to understand the patterns and what to do next, what to show. Like I showed for the decomposition. What order should I put? What are some of the matrix that I should create? You can use the key influencer for that. I wouldn't necessarily put this in front of my clients or my stakeholders for them to make decisions on. So that's it. I could probably go on for 4 more hours. I had a lot of other things that I wanted to show, but maybe another time. So thank you very much. Let me know if you have questions.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. That was awesome.
Thank you.
So this kind of goes into one of your last points that you made, but I had never really used Key Influencer before tonight, so I learned a ton. But probably my biggest takeaway, and I want to see if you would agree with me, is that I'm not going to put Key Influencer on like a published report that's just on a scheduled refresh that people look at to get their KPIs, right? Because all it's going to do is cause confusion or maybe poor decision making. It feels like it's more of an exploratory tool and not a KPI type of reporting tool.
I agree with that. Exactly. So this is something for you to understand the data a very quick way. Somebody gives you something and then tells you, okay, I need some insight, key insights out of this. What do you do? Well, just pop open your decomposition tree or key influencer, put that in there, and see what you get. That would be a good starting point for you. And then from there onwards, you can build up on that.
Awesome. Anybody else have any other questions? We got some typing going on in the chat. So Sandeep, do you have any suggestions on where to go learn more about data science material that you talked about today?
So I would suggest Microsoft Learn is pretty good with that. And I have been suggesting people to go to Microsoft for all of this. So if you don't know Python, go to Microsoft Learn, and they have created a really nice structured program for that. If you don't know about machine learning, data science, go there. They even have courses on statistics. They have courses on machine learning. And to take it to the next step, if you want to learn about Azure ML, they have really nice course on Azure ML2. All of it is without any technical jargon. It's just enough for you to give a flavor for or understanding of for it, but not so much that you will be completely overwhelmed by the stuff. And in addition to that, once you do that, you can take the Microsoft certification exams, because the Microsoft Learn and then the certification are pretty well aligned. So that's an added bonus of doing that.
Awesome.
So I see a question here, had the idea that overall feeling key influencer love it, but needs data science to you business simply fit comparing univariate to label, log regression being only for choosing the variables. It will do, so it's not reporting coefficients for categorical columns as normal log regression would do from. Yes, yeah, exactly. So, and I will also say, Rui, that I wanted to show this, but even the coefficients that it's reporting, those are not consistent. So what I got here in Excel, what I got here in Jump, I'll show you what I got in R and Python. They were all the same, about the same, and the coefficients that I got in Key Influencer were little bit different. In some cases, they were significantly different. So I don't know what they are doing other than what they have in the documentation. But in some cases, they were affected. One more thing, I just before we wrap up, don't put too many columns in the key influencer, because if you have multicollinearity that I mentioned earlier, it will ruin your results. So on one hand, you want to put not really few columns, because you won't get anything, but don't put too many, otherwise it will ruin it for you. So in a nutshell, do your exploratory data analysis and then decide what you want to put in there, because based on that, it will give you the results that you should trust.
You sound like a consultant by saying it depends.
I know. I wish I had a clear answer, and I really wish. I mean, it's a lot, and the deeper I looked into it, more confusing it got for me. And I wanted to put all of this in a block. So, but it's just too much. It will take me weeks to write, something on it. So, really appreciate you giving me the opportunity here. So. I could, talk about it and discuss and share what I've learned.
Yeah, we loved having you. David has a question in the chat about the Y2 and Y3 instead of multiplying, dividing. Would that be a valid thing?
Yes, absolutely. That's the purpose of feature engineering or this interaction thing. You would look at all the different combinations. So There was another factor that I looked at, in fact, y squared, or I think it was y3 squared or something like that. And that showed improvement as well. So all of those are valid. You could do y2, y1 plus y2 plus y3. You could do a lot of other things. And going along the same lines, those who are familiar with machine learning, I would add more features to it. If you have like a date column, then is it a Sunday, is it a holiday, and all of those things. And a key influencer will pick up that and perhaps give you better results. Unfortunately, it doesn't tell you if it has improved the results or not improved the results, right? That's something for you to you'll have to understand and do it for yourself.
Awesome, Sandeep. Thanks again so much. It's been a pleasure hosting you.
Sure.